everyone. Welcome to Dr. Quack's House Calls. I'm Dr. Quack, and we have a special interview today. We have none other than the owner of Stranglehold Championship Wrestling and the manager of champions. Let me tell you, I've known this man for a long time. Let me tell you, we have been down the road. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Eric Nelson.
Well, hello, Doc. Always a pleasure.
Always is. How are you doing?
Oh, day by day.
Day by day. I'm telling you, we just live it, man. We've been up and down this road. It's been an honor to work with you and to work for you. I'm telling you, it's always been fun with that. But, we got to see here at the very beginning, we got to see Joyce Grable, who just passed away. And we have a little bit of stories with her, but you got a lot more. Give me your thoughts about her and what she did.
Well, I'm just going to give it to you in a nutshell on this one. Up until our last physical appearance with her at Call to Arms in 2019, a lot of her stories were what it meant to be a pioneer in women's wrestling was about. Some of the struggles that they faced, the path they set forward for today's, lady wrestling. And, set the path for women like my wife, Brandy Scotch Baker, the current and reigning Stranglehold Women's Champion, Vicky Dreamboat, who is still very new, but making waves even as she is a temporary hiatus for now. But she'll be back. And now Stranglehold, of course, for the first time as of 2022, actually has a women's division. So Joyce Grable was a pioneer in that regard to help set the path for those to follow.
You don't see a lot of that on the indie scene, with women's divisions.
No, well, I'm going to touch on this real quick. Very fitting tribute to Miss Grable that we just witnessed here. But I'm going to move on to something that has been bothering me lately.
Okay.
And then we'll get into those questions you mentioned.
Oh, yeah, I've got some good ones here.
Listen, guys, these lady wrestlers, they're not your Tinder pool. Stay out of their DMs with perverse messages. And the next one of you I catch in my wife's inbox, I will come find you personally.
I mean, that's one thing to go talk to a woman that's single, but when they're married, that's even worse.
Right. And there's a lot of very young, impressionable girls on the scene right now that are almost afraid to even talk to me because they're not sure. They see a guy most of the time in their DMs. They automatically think, oh, gosh, another creep. And that's making it hard for people to be on that level.
Yeah.
To bring in these women and put them in a professional setting is they're not sure if they're, oh, my God, this guy's going to send me a picture of his penis or he's going to solicit me for something. You know what I mean?
I do. I mean,
I get that. I get that with a lot of the girls I've spoken to in the past. I was like, listen, nope. My intention is purely professional. I'm happily married to even, a woman who knows what it means to go through those challenges in the business. So, that being said, that's my soapbox on that subject for now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I seen it over with a friend that I follow. Her name is Tamara Glenn. She was in Terrifier 2 and also in
okay.
5. She had experienced a lot of stalkers lately. It made her to the point where she doesn't want to really go to conventions right now. Definitely. I mean, you got to be careful when you're a fan.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and even a so-called professional. But go ahead. Let's start that line of questions because you threw some good ones at me earlier, and I can't wait to dig in.
Oh, there's some here. This is I got one here from one of my friends. How often is your top star your biggest problem, and how often do you have to handle that?
To be honest with you, and you witnessed me telling people to get out of my building and not come back.
I have seen it.
But it is a very rare occasion that I have anyone, especially on today's roster. Doc, on a side note, I wish you had been at MomoCon 2022. What a great locker room of people. The women division, the new champions, even though World Elite is, of course, trying to overthrow Stranglehold. But all BS aside, they are some great, talented athletes. The real Drago is still the reigning Stranglehold Championship Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. He none other than hails from Siberia. Very impressive athlete. Very good pedigree of training. I could not ask for a more professional guy. And to have our esteemed former champion, Phenom, our longest reigning in history, lay down his boots at the end of that match was something to be said for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, Stranglehold, our slogan being only the strong may survive. There's a reason for that, because over the years I've gotten more selective with my booking, and I know there's some questions leading into that, so I'll save those juicy tidbits for that part.
Definitely. For those of you just joining in, this is the manager of Champions, Eric Nelson, the owner of Stranglehold Championship Wrestling. We're talking a lot of great things, and I've got another question for you, because this one here is pretty good for me.
Okay.
Because the promoter side, when running an event in a new town, is it between to run a standard card that you would have one, or established towns of established towns, or should you throw an extra gimmick match or title matches to stir up the interest?
Well, it's all booking 101. Number one, it goes back to my selectiveness as a promoter. I'm not one of those that will go get 12 of my friends and go rent a ring and go to your local high school somewhere and put together just some show. My shows are very carefully executed, and I like to quote Al Snow on this. Al Snow once said during a seminar that he did for me, telling some of the younger would-be warriors out there that if I book you and I put you by yourself on the poster alone, just you, how many people will buy a ticket to see you? And you know what, man? That stuck with me. That changed my whole perspective on booking and promoting by listening to that one phrase from Al Snow.
Yeah. I mean, you see these guys that have been in 6 months to a year and want to get paid $300 a month, $300 a match.
I mean, you're right. You're right. But here's the other thing. I have seen a few breakout guys that are worth the money that they ask for. I'm gonna give a shout out, even though he's against me right now. Storyline purposes. Luca Daniels. Oh my God, that guy is money. Everywhere that kid goes, he's been on WWE. He's been on AEW. He's been at every major independent show in the country. That draws a crowd. Let me make sure I emphasize that. That draws a crowd.
I mean, because you see it.
I have watched that kid come a long way from the time he first contacted me when he was doing an entirely different gimmick to what he's doing now. Is just, he's on fire, man. And I haven't seen too many young talents like that in a very long time. Because you see these guys come in, they're marginal at first. They go buy a pair of kick pads and some pants off of, high spots. And they go to one seminar, and oh my God, they've been trained by that person. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of great young talent out right now. The unfortunate part is, and this is from my perspective, from what I see, the business is at a stagnant point right now, and a lot of it has to do with the world economy. But I'm telling you, once things pick up in that direction, these guys are truly going to shine. And some of these girls I've seen as well. One I mentioned was Vicky Dreamboat. Once she returns from her hiatus, there's nothing going to stop her.
Yeah, she's a great talent. I've had the honor of seeing some of her matches through Stranglehold. Definitely, you should always, if you get a chance, go out there to YouTube, check out the Stranglehold Wrestling Network. It has a lot of great matches on there from many of various people. But
anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on here. Okay. When running a town that you don't run often and one or more talent is in front of the show, is from that town, should you feature them even if they are talents that are normally on there, or normally wouldn't be high on the card, or to get to the hometown reaction or support?
See, it goes back to booking 101. like I just quoted the great Al Snow. I've brought people to Georgia for the very first time from New York.
Yeah.
I have brought people from Chicago. I have brought people from other countries. I have brought people from places that they've never set foot in my state, and the crowd wants to see more of them. Case in point, and this is near and dear to you, and I'm gonna give Mr. Joseph Von Schmidt a shout. The first ever Stranglehold international champion. He was not from here. He ran a very successful wrestling school in Connecticut for many years. Made PWI 500 15 years in a row, minimum. Very successful talent, but he had never set foot here. He became easily one of my top draw talents simply by his, wait for it, ring presence.
What?
Yeah, ring presence. Yeah, I know. What a concept, right?
Right.
Because so many of these so-called superstars out there lack just that. They have no ring presence whatsoever. If you can't walk through a curtain and the people don't know how to react to you start to finish, I'm going to tell you something about Von Schmidt. I have been all over the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, everywhere with this man. He gets instant heat because of who he is. People love to hate the guy. They pay money just to hate on him. But the real of it is, I had one fan said, I know I'm supposed to boo him, but damn, he's one of the best guys in here. You did great. I've had those comments.
Do you feel that's a problem for independent wrestlers dealing with drawing the heat? Do you feel like they're scared to draw that heat?
Well, here's the thing. It's like taking cheap jabs at each other and using profanity. I see that a lot. Mm-hmm. I see the cheapest, dumbest promos. And I see people that can't promo at all. One of my greatest assets is a man that gave the power plant, its reputation. That's none other than Sergeant Burley Parker. Hey, Sarge, hope you're watching. Every time I see the man, it's school time, A to Z. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And one of the things he talked about was when he was breaking a lot of these new guys in was, okay, here's a scenario. Fall brawl. Your opponent is Scott Steiner. Give me 2 minutes and go. One such person, not just because he's my booker, not just because he's one of my champions, but Goth told me that they gave him the scenario of, you got fall brawl and your opponent is Scott Steiner. Give me 2 minutes. And it was so, Sarge was so impressed, he had Bischoff call Goth at home, and he say, okay, fall brawl, Scott Steiner, go. And they have him on speakerphone. And he says, you can hear people laughing like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But when you can pop people that are on your TV every Monday night, when you can get those people to pop for a 2-minute promo, then you're doing your job. Because here's the thing, it's not just what's your moves. It's definitely not about getting your shit in. It's the whole person concept. Number one rule, what am I always saying, Doc? Presentation is everything. That also brings up the whole person concept. Case in point, 2014. We're walking into Dave & Buster's, myself, my wife, and Road Warrior Animal. Road Warrior used to get really upset if someone brought up the prospect of a new Road Warriors. My whole thing was, does Road Warrior legacy deserve to die once you're gone? Well, absolutely not. No. So this is what he says. He said, we need to find people that not only have the moves and the look, but also the charisma. He said, think about my promos. The Road Warrior promo, right? First it's Hawk. He slaps Animal's chest and they look at Precious Paul. He sums it all up, and off to the ring they went. You can't find that anymore. You can't even find that in WWE anymore. In AEW, it's like Indy 2.0. Their booking sucks. Their production sucks. So what? You got a billionaire money mark backing you.
I've had people tell me that AEW, it's for a certain breed of fan.
Yeah, it really is, but it's just like, much as I love the guy, John Moxley, but when the camera pans in on you blading,
Yeah.
or you're doing a Fez press and the production camera zooms in on you punching your own chest. That is shit. Actually, no. It's worse than shit. It's horse fuckery.
Yeah. That's a big word we love
That's
to use.
exactly what the hell it is. Now, granted, they got the money to burn. Good for them. Good that they're basically giving the boys somewhere to work. I am all for that.
Mm-hmm.
By all means, give the boys a place to work. Because how many years of Vince's shit do we have shoved up our ass? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And didn't you have a question based upon that?
I do have one more question here. This actually comes from another friend of mine. Is it better to book a smaller venue if it's better overall price and you know you will sell out a book, or a larger venue that may seat more people but it won't sell out as easy?
It all depends on one thing: the area, the demographic. It really does, because and I know this will come up later in discussion because it always does. You know, when you and I even talk offline about this.
Yeah.
If you're in Atlanta, you don't want some small shit venue. Now, if you're in Winder, Georgia, of course use the rec center. You're going to draw maybe 253 if you book it right. If you book it right. Not just a bunch of guys that look like they should be bagging groceries at Publix. I'm talking about using actual good independent talent. And I'm not saying local because there's not a lot of that.
No.
There really isn't. I look around the posters just in Georgia and I shake my head and I look at their numbers. Like, nobody's making money. And the worst thing is the fans come to me, and I'm not going to name names or put anybody out there because they sworn me to secrecy. When they come to me and say, hey, I went to show X last night. Yeah, how was it? Man, it's kind of boring. When are you going to run again? Well, I'll get there. And we'll discuss that later on in this interview.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't use a lot of people from my own state. It's because I just don't have enough faith in their drawing ability. I don't have enough faith in their professionalism.
Yeah,
You know,
you bring that up here. We're talking about the state of Georgia independent wrestling.
I mean, it's terrible.
What makes it so bad?
The lack of professionalism, number one.
Okay.
And here's a trend I'm seeing. And I'm not singling anybody out, but I've seen too many cases of child predators. Oh my freaking God.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sad to say this, truly, and all the years that you and I have known each other and worked together and been all up and down the roads across this country, some of the worst people I have met have been in this business. It is the absolute shame. I have a 15-year-old niece in the other room that's had at least 8 wrestlers in her inbox. Like I said, I'm not naming names. I'm not doing it here. I'm leaving it alone for now. The appropriate people have been notified. I promise you that.
Right. I mean,
and situations have been handled, but I'm gonna leave that there. And it's to a point that there's a lot of casual fans that come to me and say they don't feel safe taking their kids around this crowd, and that's terrible.
That is.
Because that makes it hard on guys like me and you to make a living doing this. Sure, we're in it for love of the game as well, but honestly, we'd like to make a living. Because if we go through this much trouble to book the right card in the right town, you want to make money. You know, there's no other. That's why it's called a professional wrestling business, not a professional wrestling hobby.
Right.
Or the professional wrestling hangout spot. It's called professional wrestling business. That means that money changes hands. It is, in fact, a business, and it needs to be treated as such.
Now, you say you look for talent outside the state of Georgia. And
Yes.
back in the 90s, they used to say that the three hotbeds was Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. Do you still believe that to be the same here in 2023?
I have picked some very good talent out of those states. Yes, even now, uh, present day, those are three places I look. I'm gonna give JPWA a shout out.
Okay.
Dr. Tom Pritchard and Glenn Jacobs, also known as Kane,
Yeah.
run a very tight knit group up there, and I've seen them put out some great guys that have gone out there and made waves in the Indies as well. So they're absolutely one of my favorite wrestling schools, because there's so many people out there trying to do a wrestling school, but they still don't. They need to be schooled themselves, more than half of them. But JPWA, I mean, it goes without saying, Dr. Thomas trained countless legends.
Yeah. Now, they talk about other schools as well, like the Monster Factory up there in New Jersey.
Yeah,
They
yeah, it's
talk about
decent.
Booker T's school in Houston.
I have seen, I have known a couple of people that came out of that school that are top notch. Yes, yeah, one kid that I know, I say kid because he's a lot younger than me. Went down there, actually from here, and turned it around in my book. Because when he was here, to me, he wasn't getting it done. Not from what I saw, not from what the fans were telling me. But that's Anthony Andrews. He's really, really, really made a round turn since he went down there. And he's out there still, doing the thing from last time I saw.
Definitely. Well, I got a few
So,
more questions here on
sure,
top of
sure.
this. Because
Go
I'm
ahead.
curious your thoughts. Now, you have Vince McMahon, who's basically out of professional wrestling, and you have Endeavor, who bought them out, UFC owned as well. What do you think about that when it comes to the WWE? Are you happy with that? Or how does that make you feel?
That's an interesting question. It really is. Now, of course, WWE became more corporate than anything. I'll go ahead and rewind for you. Let's go back to the mid 1980s. I didn't see WWF until about right around the first WrestleMania.
Okay.
And back then it was called the Macon Coliseum. Now it's called the Macon Centerplex, but I will always call it the Macon Coliseum. And that was the first place that, besides watching it on a little bit of television of it, I saw. First time I ever saw it in person was around that time when they were wrapping up for WrestleMania 1. And they would have these guys come in, actually do meet and greets in the lobby. It was more of a touchy-feely, fan-friendly environment at that time. The last Coliseum event I saw was leading up to a Royal Rumble in Atlanta. And, that tells you when the last WWE in Georgia event I ever went to, back home. I went to Raw Day 1 in Atlanta with a friend, but it was still not the same feel. It was very corporate. It wasn't as fan-friendly unless you had the money, basically. I've had people come to me that have done fan access before and told me, well, it was cool in the beginning, but now it's just kind of like not even worth the money. They're taken away from the thing that made them mainstay, which is the fans. Now, I'll admit, not all wrestling fans are great, because some of them just geez, but 95% of the fans I've interacted with, whether they like the indies, whether they come to my show or any other show, or whether they go or strictly WWE or AEW or Impact, 95% of them are good people and just honest, hardworking people just want to be entertained. That's my take from it. And those are the people that approach me with ideas and say, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if?" Yeah, it would be cool. And I'll tell you why it's cool, because you're the one that's going to buy the ticket.
Oh, well, here you go. I'm sorry, I'm not getting comments for some reason, but I am getting them on my phone. This is about presentation. If presentation is everything, why are you dressed like that?
Well, it's like this. I'm in my studio in my home, and I am wearing my logo. So
That's it, SCW.
real talk. I mean, I am not in promoter mode right now.
Totally understand that. All right, here we go. I got a couple more here because I'm curious. So the releases, is that standard business procedure that you saw there, or was that just, hey, we're really
Man,
getting rid of some people?
in my mind, it's new management. Now, we were talking about Endeavor and all that. They're not wrestling people. They're not. And even a newfound wrestling fan can tell you that they don't know wrestling. They just don't. Do I feel that people like Dolph Ziggler, you know, Shelton Benjamin, Matt Riddle, yeah, they're going to go to AEW and probably get good paydays.
Oh, yeah.
Or and if for some strange, odd reason they don't, I mean, there's Impact, and if for some strange reason they don't, I mean, they can make a killing on the indies. So there's people that will pay that money. So either way, they're good, right?
Right. People like Emma who got released.
I mean, they released her like several times by now, right?
Right. So I mean,
I don't
to the indies.
I don't have a personal problem with her. I think she will end up on the indies. I don't know how well she'll do. I don't know from this standpoint what her drawing capability is. But I wasn't surprised on that one, honestly. There's nothing against her. I'm certain she has her talents. But that whole thing just didn't do it for me. It really didn't. And I'm sure a lot of fans can relate to that.
And then you got Jade Caldwell, who's now brought into NXT.
Oh, Jade Cargill? Yeah.
Cargill, excuse me, yes.
Oh, my God. She's money.
You think she's money?
I do. I think she's going to do big things if they book her properly. That's the important part.
And it is.
That's the important part. I mean, you could take one of the best stars out there, but if you book them like shit, like okay, there's two that have come to my attention, Mansoor and Mace.
Yeah.
What was that? It was some Chippendale gimmick. I can't even. It was some kind of body model bullshit thing. I personally thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was worse than the 3-man band, and that was pretty shitty. I think they used both those men horribly. Mansoor could be a guy with the right coaching and with the right booking. He could be something. And Mace, oh my God, a former pro football player. Most pro football players, and I know you'll appreciate this one, Doc. Mm-hmm. Most pro football players that have come to world professional wrestling have excelled. I mean, I know not everybody likes Goldberg, but I mean, Goldberg was a draw.
Right, he was.
The Junkyard Dog, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Now I can go down a list.
Oh yeah.
And these are all people that became legends because they had the discipline of being a pro football player. I mean, Mace, such a big guy, so much potential, and they wasted it. So I think where he's concerned as well, with the right booking and the right coaching, I see better things happening for those guys. Some of the others I wasn't that familiar with. I will admit I don't watch much WWE television because honestly, all I got to do is get on social media and watch and read the highlights and read the good, bad, and the ugly.
Get the gist without having to sit through it.
Yeah, and that's been the best and the worst thing for the wrestling world is the internet.
I apologize, folks. I am not getting comments through here, but I will actually read one here for you. Matt Riddle is a liability. I think I agree with that.
He might be, but and I'm not saying I would personally do it, but I'm saying he can go to AEW and still draw money. But I'm not saying that if he showed up at my doorstep that I'd be willing to offer him a bunch of money and say, come on, we're going to go book an event with you, I'm just saying he's one of those three that could go to AEW and draw a big paycheck because he is a draw, liability or not.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Money.
I'm going to touch on that, liability. Let's talk about CM Punk.
Okay.
There's a lot on both sides about that whole incident with Jack Perry. Now, way I was brought up in the business is if you're a junior guy and a veteran tells you, hey, man, do not use real glass that I've got to follow you and get in. Should he have handled that in front of the boys? Absolutely not. He should have taken the man outside and handled it man to man instead of in front of the boys. That's where he went wrong. What was he in the right initially? Yes. Because when somebody looks at the camera and basically calls you a bitch and says, I'm gonna do what I want anyway, that's no dice, man.
Right.
But and Sarge even pointed this out. Well, I said, man, I could have said it better myself. He should have taken it away from the boys. You don't do that stuff in front of the boys. You go outside and handle it man to man, and then go about your day. Now, liability. CM Punk a liability? He has his ups and his downs. But when it comes to drawing, there is no shadow of it. There's just no way he's not a draw. That man's a money-making machine. Do I see a possible WWE run? Yeah. I'm saying it's possible.
Yeah, a lot of people are predicting that. They're calling it Royal Rumbles when he might be coming.
I'm hearing him in Survivor Series.
That's very possible.
And this is from somebody that does not watch the current product on television. Right. But I see enough of it, and I've been around it enough to know who's who in the zoo, if you get what I'm saying.
I do.
Do I think he could be a headache in the locker room? Of course. But do I think that he'd make more money than you and I ever seen in a lifetime for somebody? Absolutely. Without doubt. So would I hire CM Punk if he walked through that door? You better believe it. Because sometimes, I've even found myself doing this, there's some people out there I honestly do not like as people. Not because they're, the obvious turn-off criteria that they're the scum of society, but it's because we don't mesh as people. But that doesn't mean as a professional I wouldn't bring them in.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up here because I want to ask you, what's next for Stranglehold?
Well, you may know this. Well, I know you know, and some of you out there may know this. But back in May of this year, I had a very serious health condition that I was on the brink of death. Let's just put it that way. I had 16 days in the hospital to think and reflect on things. So, I had lots of people hit me up. Well, let's just go get a school gym somewhere. Let's go rent the rec center. I'm past that. You did forget one subject, and I'll touch on this in a minute.
Go ahead.
It can't just be a show in some building in some little one-horse town. It's got to be the show. The next thing that I am cooking up, which when the ink dries on the contract, when the money is in the bank, and I reveal what that is, I'm going to book it to the degree that if it was my last show on earth, the last thing I ever did as a living, breathing human being, that I'd be just fine with it being my swan song. Let's put it to you that way. And that's the way it has to be from now on. It can't just be some thrown together bullshit, which that's not really my style anyway. It has to be the show, the product, the experience. To a degree that nobody's ever seen before at our level. Now, let's touch on that. Conventions versus shows, right?
Yeah, we were going to talk about this. Yeah, definitely. Because, you have done both of those. You have been out there.
I have. We did our own convention with Call to Arms. That was us exclusively, and it wasn't supposed to be.
Right.
It was actually supposed to be, I gave all these promoters across the states a chance to build something. And you've heard me say this before. Some people just can't get out of their own fucking way.
They can't.
They can't. But conventions on that scale are the money these days. These Comic Cons, these card conventions, anything dealing with sports as a convention, World of Wheels, Walker Stalker Con. That's another one I've seen wrestlers at. I mean, any little anime con that you can think of, those are your moneymakers.
Yeah.
Because you pretty much don't have to go out and make posters and post to the town for those events. Those things have websites. Those things advertise themselves, right? Because you're not the only act in town. You've got, like one event had William Shatner, Robert Englund. You got those type of celebrities on these things as well. So wrestling's kind of a sideshow act. Unless they just book a bunch of legends just to do signing, and that's that. But I have seen a lot of these with live wrestling. MomoCon was 4 days. Yeah. MomoCon 22 that we did was 4 days. It was great. We had a very good response, from the people. I still have people asking me about it. I say, well, I'm not with MomoCon right now, but some can always change. There's always a possibility, right? And there's always a possibility I can show it
after this last year.
I don't know, and you know what? I'm not sweating them if they don't. I don't necessarily need them in particular. There are other conventions that have approached me. I'm being honest. I'm kind of taking it easy. I mean, what month are we in now? I mean, we just approached October. Yeah. It's only been 5 months since I nearly died. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm not in a big hurry.
Getting to smell the roses every now and then.
Yeah, I need to kind of just take it all in, just make more calculated decisions. That's really where I'm at. But honestly, conventions versus spot shows, and a lot of the boys have heard me say this, the ones that have spoken to me about it, and even some of the fans have come to me about it. Really, conventions are where the money's at because there's hundreds of thousands of people walking around spending money. You're a salesman, and that's one of your fortes outside of our business, like me.
Yeah, I did that for a while.
A spot show to me is basically a cold call. That's what it is. That's more or less what a spot show to me today is pretty much a cold call for sales.
Yeah.
Right? And the most important question for all of you out there is this: does the benefit outweigh the cost? Does it? You know what I'm saying?
I do.
If the answer is no, then don't damn do it.
Right.
You don't owe nobody shit. And here's another pet peeve, and this kind of goes into this a little bit. More people are worried about popping the boys than they are the fans. The boys ain't buying the tickets, the fans are.
Can you say that again for the people in the back?
Once more, in case y'all missed it. It's not about popping the boys. The boys ain't buying tickets, the fans are.
Boom. Big time, boom.
It's great when my peers come to me and say, hey, man, I had a great time. That was a great show. I love that. That's a feel-good moment. And on the opposite of that spectrum, when I deal with people that who don't even know my situation, go out there and say, well, can we all agree that it's a good thing Eric Nelson didn't get MomoCon this year? Motherfucker, I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
I gave two fucks less about anything at that point. I was too busy trying to get out of the hospital.
Because the big thing, and what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't advertise and promote what you're doing, who knows where it's at?
Exactly. Here's another thing. I had several guys that I used to book, note the emphasis on that said, well, it's not my job to promote the show. I'm honest the promoters. If you can't tell your fan base that you're going to be on my show, what use are you to me? Your job is to make me money. You want to get paid to do a job, then that's part of the job. It's to let people know, hey, on December the 13th of whatever year in whatever place, I'm just using that as an example, I'm going to be here representing this company, wrestling this person. Come out and see me. It takes 5 minutes, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. But some people out there have such a big fucking ego that they think they're already there. And newsflash for you, it doesn't matter how many belts you've got. That don't mean shit. And I've had representatives from the bigger companies all tell me they don't look at that. They actually think it's very markish, to be honest. Didn't you tell me a story about a guy who put his championship belt in the front seat, made his girlfriend sit in the back and shit like that?
Yep, he did that just to work, but it was great to see. It was funny as hell.
I mean, who does stupid shit like that? I mean, that's the stuff that makes the indies look bad.
He said he got that idea from Randy Savage.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen
as fucking if. Then the guy sheds real tears when y'all took the belt from him. Get the fuck out of here.
No, there's people.
And I'll say this. 85% of the people on the indies are not bookable. They're not.
Yeah. Why do you think WWE was looking at athletes at one point?
Exactly. I would rather go to a college. George Animal Steel. We know him.
Yeah.
Right? We did his final appearance. Right. One thing he told me, he says, when you start going and looking for fresh guys, go to the field houses of these football teams. Go talk to the football guys. Go talk to hockey players. Go talk to soccer players. Because most of these athletes are already disciplined. And they've already perfected their craft, majority of them. Even the ones that may not get, a major league contract for, say, NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, whatever, right? They have still taken time to perfect their craft. They are disciplined.
They are.
And that is one thing that is lacking in independent professional wrestling. Discipline. There is none. Stay away from these damn 15, 16-year-old girls. Stay off the fucking drugs. For God's sake, stop breaking and entering into people's houses when they tell you no about something. Yeah, I've heard about that one recently. That really just got to me. It's like, when you and I got into this, there was honor. You had another question that we forgot to touch.
No, I've asked all my ones here, but I'm going to say this. Do you have any final words, anything you want to say to our viewing audience here?
For God's sakes, you never stop paying dues, no matter what level you're on or how long you've so-called been doing this. Just because, and here's another thing, just because you've been doing something a long time doesn't necessarily mean you're damn good at it.
Very true.
I've seen people, I've been in the business 25 years, but they've only worked for 2 promotions in one state.
Yes. Travel, big thing, travel.
I mean, damn, everybody, and I had another guy who is in my Hall of Fame, and I don't give a shit what anybody has to say about me having a Hall of Fame. Do you pay my fucking bills? Do you feed me? Yep. If you don't, then fuck you. There's that. But all bets aside on that, he says, how did you get to where you got to? How did you get to meet all the people? It was legwork. It was asking questions. It was networking. It was going up to the right people, asking the right questions. Because let me tell y'all, it ain't what you know, it's who you know.
A lot of times.
And most of the who you knows, if they're willing to put their neck out for you, it's because you got something. And if you're one of these people that thinks wrestling in the backyard of some convenience store, what the fuck ever, is going to make you a star, then you better go back home and pick up your video game controller, because that's as close to the real thing as you're going to get. And that's pretty much it. Pay your dues. Invest in yourself, for God's sakes. Get some gear. Get in the gym. And I'm not talking about going to Applebee's and your server's name is Jim. I'm talking about go to a real gym. Work out. Don't just take pictures of yourself at the machine. Work out.
Yep.
Get a reputable fucking trainer. Somebody that's been somewhere.
This is all true. Well, that's the end of our show. I'm Dr. Quack. Thank you, Eric Nelson, for coming on here.
Always a pleasure. Anytime, Doc.
Thank you for sharing your insights and your knowledge with the people here. Hopefully some people learn some stuff, but till then, I will see you actually Tuesday. I will have Old School, a man that has been in the professional wrestling business and also in the promo world. We're going to talk some stuff there. I will see you on Tuesday.
I'll be watching.